Hey everyone, it's Kyle Walgren here, and I'm thrilled to be hosting another episode of the Business of Education podcast. Today we have an amazing guest that I've been super excited to have a conversation with. Please allow me to introduce Lisa Collum, a true trailblazer in the English language arts, but also a leader behind women's entrepreneurship. Lisa's impact goes way beyond curriculum development. She's also a keynote speaker. And like I said, loves to empower women entrepreneurs. Her journey is inspiring not just to the education markets, but to also new people in education field like myself. Lisa, thank you to the show.
Yes, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
So Lisa, I was thumbing through education content online and I stumbled across a clip um, with you talking about how you'd been investigated by the Department of Education, not once, but twice. And I
Yeah.
feel like when that stuff happens, it's because somebody has figured out how to do something and they don't want anybody else to know about it. You're one of those people. Uh, First off, thank you. But could you tell us a little bit about, the shock and awe of the first time that they reached out to you?
Yeah, it happened when I was 22 in my
Oh,
second year of
wow.
teaching. So I thought I was going to jail. I knew I did nothing wrong, but I just started investigated and I thought, what is happening? I'm going to jail for no reason. It was probably like one of the scariest moments of my entire life because I had waited to be a teacher. Like I'm literally one of those people that since I was like 5, I had my dream job. I was doing what I loved. And then the minute I do good, I get investigated. And so I think I was in shock and scared to death the first time for sure. And then obviously it happened again the second time, which that the second time was actually worse because it became a news story in the newspaper and much bigger.
Oh, see, when I heard you tell the story the first time, I kind of thought like, well, that was probably the aha moment. Like you've really figured out how to grow children. So I looked at it a little bit different. But
Yeah.
did that was that like part of the reason why you branched out on your own? Like you own multiple businesses. You're not just an individual entrepreneur. You own multiple successful businesses in the education space.
Yeah. So I also own a nonprofit school that serves students in my local community. But to be honest, to your point, I think I was so young and I was so scared in the situation that I was just trying to figure out what was going on, not even thinking like at first that they were doing this because I had done something that had never been done before. I was at a low performing Title I school where every kid was ESE or English language learner.
Hmm.
Every kid was below grade level. And it wasn't until the second time I got investigated that my mind kind of shifted. And I remember thinking, I literally remember to this day, which has been 20 years, I don't think they think these kids can do it. It just dawned on me that this wasn't about their checking up, doing their due diligence, doing their job. They actually don't think these kids can do it. And I didn't know at the time, but that's literally where my mission started. And now later I can see that, and that's how it's grown over all the years. But that was a pivotal moment of, wow, they really don't think it. And now I'm going to show everyone, prove everyone wrong.
Oh, I love that. That kind of aligns with how I got into education. I never thought I was going to be in education ever until my daughter asked me to teach her how to read. And when I started looking for like solutions and tools online because she was a COVID child, I just found out how big the literacy problem was. And that was like when I decided, I'm like, hey, this isn't right. We need to fix this. And I felt like like you, the people that were affected the most were, you know, kids in inner city communities that didn't have a lot of financial help, and I just felt like people had left them there. So
Yeah.
we share the same mission there. So that makes me even more excited to talk to you about this. What were some of the things that you saw early on where you're like, maybe I could do it a little different?
The first thing is there, even still to this day, besides my company, there's just not specific writing curriculum. There's always ELA that has reading and writing together, and every ELA curriculum you look at is 80% reading, and writing's kind of sprinkled throughout it. So, my first year's teaching, I'm asking for curriculum. They're saying there's no curriculum. You've got to use the reading. And what's happening is every 10 to 15 pages, it's saying, write a paragraph about this, write a paragraph about this. There's no explicit instruction, no repetition and practice. And when I was told there was no curriculum and that was my only option, that's where I just went, you know what? I'm gonna go back to basics. I'm gonna go with what know works best, which is repetition and practice. And I knew every time I had talked to a kid ever and mentioned writing, they either hated it or said they were bad at it. And so I knew it was because it seems overwhelming to write an essay, right? When you say, we're going to write an essay, every kid's like, yeah, right. I'm not writing an essay. So I didn't take that approach. Instead, I broke down the essay into a bunch of pieces. So
Mm-hmm.
each piece, the hook, your thesis, your closing, your transition, your topic. And I taught each piece individually with repetition and practice. And before they knew it, they had a whole essay in front of them.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. The writing was something that intimidated me. Like, I consider myself a non-reader. Like, I'm horrible at reading, but I'm even worse at spelling. So in order to hide my spelling in my mind, I learned how to handwrite because I felt
Mm,
like my handwriting could be sloppy enough, but still legible to
right.
like hide my imperfections in spelling. That was like
Right.
how I faked my way through it. And
There you
still
go.
to this day, my kids are like, I don't know anybody that handwrites, but it's because of my insecurities behind my spelling. I just always hand wrote everything.
Yeah.
Um,
And every kid, right? Kind of that's what you did. Every kid has their thing that they do, which is probably covering something that they're unsure about or don't think they have that skill. So I always remember that too, because parents will come to me and say, my kid can't spell, my kid can't write, their handwriting. And I say, well, did anyone show them how to get their thoughts on paper in an organized way? Because a lot of times handwriting and spelling will come once they learn how to do that. But right now you're just telling them, take all this and put it on paper. No one's showing them how. So of course it's going to come out all over the place.
yeah, no, I can relate for sure. You started your business with $100
Yeah.
and a binder of 25 lessons. Today, it's a company that represents curriculum all over the country. Tell us about those early journeys because you came from an education background.
Yeah. So I had taught for 10 years and had no plans of starting a business. And throughout those 10 years of teaching and becoming like a writing coach and a specialist in my district, I never wrote anything down. I was just sharing my strategies. Everyone was like, do what you did at your school. You got 100% with all these other schools. So that was like what I was told to do all the time. And so I kept doing that. Every school I worked with was doing really well. And then in my last year where I was teaching in my public school, I had my third baby and I applied for a job teaching online. It was with Florida Virtual School. And this to me was my dream job. I could be at home in my pajamas with my kid there and I'd be teaching all day. So I get this job. I leave my district for the first time in 10 years, and everyone I ever worked with starts calling, emailing, knocking on my front door. Where'd you go? You can't just leave us, because I'd been sharing my strategies with them. They were getting, their school grades went from D's and F's to A's because of writing. And so I'm like, oh, I left. I had another baby. I took a different job. And they're like, no, 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 you need to write it down. Like, we will buy it. And I remember laughing and being like, yeah, my blood runs educator. I don't have any business in me whatsoever. And they took me to dinner. These principals were knocking on my door. And so finally, like, no lie, I went to Google and I typed in, how do you start a business in Florida? I followed the steps on the Florida Business Sunbiz page. And when it got to S Corp, C Corp, and LLC, I eeny, meeny, miny, mode. I choose S Corp.
I love that.
And I printed my first binder. So I would work all day long on virtual school from 8 to 4. And then at night, I'd start top score writing. So I'd go to Office Max. I'd make copies of these 20 lessons that I wrote. I'd come home. I used to use the regular hole puncher, and then I bought like the machine one that you like suck it in, you push the button. Cause I was like, I gotta punch a bunch of holes. I'd put them in a 3-ring binder from Costco. And then I'd ship out early in the morning before I'd start work. And I did this for 4 years. So at one point I had like an assembly line with my kids and my husband, and we're like making binders. And it wasn't until the 4th year I looked one day and I saw 500 binders, and I thought, yeah, I can't do both. I need to do my business. But when I tell you, people would call and be like, can I speak to the purchasing department? And I'd be like, yes, one moment. Hi, this is the purchasing department. Can I speak to your accounting? Yes, because it was just me for 6 years figuring
That's
out.
that's amazing. I love that. I fell into my first business kind of the same way. I never wanted to be in business ever. I was in the oil field. And my dad's like, "Oh, you can do this pretty good. You should start a business." And that was in 2008. And
Wow.
he's like, I'm like, I don't have enough money to do that. So he's like, I'll invest. Let me cash out some of my investments and we'll start this business together. So I took my savings to go buy the tools while he was, liquidating some of his investments. And that was when the financial crash happened.
Oh,
So he watched his entire net worth go to nothing almost. And I was like, what do I do? I put what $10,000 I had saved into this company, had no
yeah.
business experience, and jumped in, and that
Yep.
was, I don't know, when I was 21 or 22, a long time ago. So maybe that's why I find your story so fascinating, is because a lot of the journey is the same way.
Yeah.
What do you think, like, one of the biggest challenges was, you know, I'm going to ask it in two different ways. What was the biggest challenge being a mom, an educator, and an entrepreneur at the same time?
Hmm.
And then what was the biggest challenge after shifting to full-time entrepreneur to understanding how to scale that business?
Yeah. So, the mom entrepreneur, teacher, the hardest part for me was I had a pretty balanced life. I felt like I was a teacher. I was done by 3 every day. I had the summers off. And then I went into this business world where and at first I was doing both, where I was actually seeing that I wasn't spending a lot of time with my kids. And I thought, I got to figure this out. And I feel like now, my oldest is 18. I'm like a pro at the balancing thing. But it was really hard because you're trying to do your passion. And anyone who's been able to fulfill a passion would understand this. Like, you're on this drive to do something on a mission. And you're being pulled because you're a mom, you're a parent, and you want to be with your kids. So the hardest part for me was actually realizing that. And at first I thought, I'm going to have to choose. I'm going to have to scale back my business or hire a nanny. And I just ended up throughout the way figuring out ways that I could do both and have somewhat of balance. I don't like the word balance. I feel like it's never going to
Not a
be
good
like
word.
this. Yeah, I feel like it's always like this, and that's okay. And I can say now that I have 4 kids. My oldest two are 16 and 18. That these were the best life lessons I could have given them, because throughout all of it, I talked to them, hey, I got to go away for a week to a school, but I would always like pitch it like, I'm going to get the money as I sell the books, even though it was all through purchase orders. But I'm like, I'm going to go to get the books, get the money, and then I'm going to pay for our vacation this summer. I constantly did that because I wanted them to understand I'm not just flying around working because I'm, trying to have fun. I've got to work. I've got to get money, and we got to pay for things that we're going to do. So I think it was just realizing that I'm going to have to figure that out, that balance. But also too, I didn't go full in on my business. I was doing it as a side hustle. And I say this to other people that want to start a business. It doesn't have to be the day you open, you buy a building and hire 100 people. You can do this on the side and start it slow. And that's what I did. I was low risk, $100, started slow, built it along the way. It took me forever, but that's fine. I'm a 7-figure nationwide company now, but I built it slow. I didn't, and I think that's part of because I was a mom and I didn't want to miss out on my kids. And then the hardest part about scaling, I didn't know anything about scaling. That word, like, I literally just learned it like 5 years ago. I'm like, why is everyone talking about scaling all the time with their business? I was kind of fine. I was like, I'm good. Like, I'm making much more money than a teacher. Even when I was only making, 90 to 100,000, I was used to making 40,000. And then people kept saying, but you're only in 2 counties, like in Florida. You could be in all of Florida and more counties. And it took a lot for me to understand this, but I needed to invest money in my company to make money and invest money in people to make money. And when I hired my first person to bring onto my team, I tripled that year in revenue. And then when I started bringing more people in, it's just been up from there. So I had to learn that and accept that, because when you create something, you feel like it's your baby, and it's very hard to let other people in because I created it from scratch. So that
Yeah.
was just a learning curve.
And you knew every single thing there was. So you're like, well, I just know how to do this. I'll do it myself. Or I know
Yes.
where that information is. I'll do it myself. I
Yeah.
do mentoring calls quite often with young founders. And that's one of the things that I talk about a lot is like, you need to identify when it's time to bring in somebody to help you, what you need to prioritize your time on. how can you get more out of your time? A lot of people have a hard time doing that transition, and virtual assistants, in today's age are super helpful
Yeah.
and affordable. So I'm glad that you said that. So you move into building your business full time to scaling it, go from what you said, a couple counties, districts to nationwide.
Hmm.
What did you learn? So a lot of our audience is education technology founders. Uh,
Hmm.
so what did you learn from going state to state? Like, what are some of the challenges you saw there in growing across the nation that would be helpful to a lot of our audience?
So there's two sides of it. I think I found out that states there's a lot that state testing, state education have in common. And I didn't realize that. I kept thinking I'm a Florida curriculum. I built this around Florida testing. I'm Florida, Florida, Florida. And then a Georgia school picked up on it one day and they said, "Can we use it?" And I looked into it. I said, "Yeah, actually you can. It does align with your standards." And then a Tennessee. And so that's how it kind of happened. I wasn't pushing out. People were finding out. And then I started researching. And then I got really interested and thought, let me look at all the states. And so I started looking at all the states and I'm like, wait a minute, writing is writing. And the standards are pretty much the same across the board. There's little things in testing that are different. So that's the first part of it, is that there's the need is kind of the same across all states. On the other side of it, I think that what I found is states run differently from a state level, meaning what they allow their schools to do. So, for instance, Florida is hard to get into different districts. Florida, I start a lot at the teacher level, and then they ask their principals, and the principals ask the district. I very rarely go in from a district because it's very hard to get in up here. I go to Arizona, it's the complete opposite. I'm talking to the superintendent, right?
For sure.
Georgia gives full reign to their schools to kind of choose what they want. So that's what I'm finding is different about these states. And the only way I really find out is by talking to the schools. Like, what does this look like? Is it easy for us to let you use it as a teacher and then you go to your principal? How can we help you go to your principal? What can I provide you? Data, testimonials, research, things like that. So yeah, it's different and it's the same.
So there was one thing that when I was listening to another interview you did that you talked about, with the size of your company and the staff, and you said that you use a lot of teachers that are still involved in the classroom. We
Mm-hmm.
follow that same uh, structure. We love having teachers come in and do our comprehension quizzes for us, building those for us.
Okay.
It's awesome for us.
Yeah.
But when you're doing that, how are you maintaining uh, that you're getting that same quality back from these teachers? Because this has all been in your hands, and now you're asking for help to write these curriculums. What was that like?
Yeah, that was another letting go process for me. But so there's a couple things. I have a small full-time team, that everyone on my full-time team used my program for 5+ years in the classroom.
Mm.
So that's been very helpful. And then I have about 15 to 20 part-time that are pulled in for different projects and things like that. In the very beginning, it was very hard because they would do it and then I'd look over everything and then make it my own. And I had to realize that I'm not the best at everything. And what I mean by that is, like, I have one teacher who's a middle school teacher who's very good with specific middle school strategies, right? And that's more of her forte. So she brings in things that I can't. And then I have someone else who's super creative on the animated side. So she helps with the lessons with that. So it was just again, I think what happened for me, luckily, is I got so busy that I had to bring in other people and I had to let go. I was almost put in this position where I was like, it is what it is. I can't possibly write all this curriculum, because what happened, I started with fourth and fifth, and then everyone wanted second and third, then sixth, seventh, eighth, then high school. Before I knew it, in a year, I'm writing 12 different curriculums, and I'm like, I can't be one person. So I try to like have a system where I'm looking at everything. But now, like my CAO, for example, who used my program for 15 years, now she's full time with me. Um, she looks at it. It doesn't have to come to me. So I've learned to kind of like build this system where I have people in front of me and then I'm kind of the last final if needed on a lot of the things.
That's awesome. I love the how you broke it into grades there, because I think a lot of tech founders or education founders struggle with that, like where to start. Do I need to start with all grades? And I remind my team, like, we're a K4 product. Like, let's not try and be anything more than a K4 product. And if I can really dial it in, I like to be a 2-4 product, because that's where
Mhm.
we're really great at.
Yeah.
We're getting requests like yourself to move into other grades, so my team wants to push it.
Yeah.
um, the One of the things that uh, I found interesting is that you built your business, building curriculum, and then you started a nonprofit
Yeah.
to found a school.
Yeah.
Nonprofits and for profits are two totally different verticals.
Yep.
What were some of the challenges you experienced there moving into the nonprofit space?
So once again, per my usual self, I dive into something that I know nothing about. So basically, this was a school that had been in my community for many years. But what happened was the owner graduated everyone, got rid of staff, and there was just one small room. I knew him. My brother went to this school, and I had told him all along if he ever wanted to get rid of it, let me know. So when I bought the school, it was nothing. I bought the school name and I rented a room. So I got to start it from scratch. And I remember thinking, number one, why am I doing this? I'm already trying to start a nationwide company. I just had my fourth kid. But number two, I knew I needed this school. I knew about this school as specifically for kids that need something different. I knew that a lot of kids weren't going to make it in the public schools with 3,000 kids. I believe every kid's different, and some kids just need a smaller setting. So, like, deep down inside, just something pulled me to knowing that I needed to have this school. And the reason I did the nonprofit was I knew that most of the students that needed it were low income, and that I didn't want to make anyone have to pay out of pocket, because most private schools, I live in Palm Beach County, which is bougie Palm Beach in South Florida, and everyone has money. But the kids that need this school, a lot of them are low income. And I didn't want to put that strain on families, number one. Number two, I didn't want them to think they couldn't come. So I did the nonprofit route so I could get grants and be open to different government funding. And so I once again go to Google, I type in how to become a nonprofit, I find this company. I think it cost me $2,500. It was the best $2,500 ever spent because they walked me through the whole process. I just like filled in the blanks where needed. We submitted it and I got my 501c3 status within 6 months. And
Oh, wow.
so people say, why do you have the school? You don't even make any money. What's the point? And that's truly a mission. That's a heart mission. That's, people always say, like, you're living your life and, what is it for? And it, like, I know I'm doing something good. I know I'm doing something with my other company too, but this is like, I'm saving lives. And to me, that's part of what fuels me and it just makes my life better. So it's hard to explain.
Right.
But that's why I do this school and I can see it. It's 2 miles from my house. So I can see the kid who comes in, got kicked out of school, mom's in jail, dad's running the streets, to 2 years later, he graduates and is going to college, right? Or graduates going to a trade school. And for me, that's like, there's just no words to see that.
The I think for me, I've always been very profit driven. Our company's still a for profit company, and we do have investors, but I haven't taken a real salary in 3 years, and I sometimes I'm like, how do I stay motivated all of a sudden when my whole life has been focused on making money? Now, but to see the opportunity to impact lives is so powerful that you can
That's it.
almost survive on bread and water, just because it feels like you're doing the right thing for the first time in so
Yeah. And I think that's hard to explain unless you have the opportunity, because we're just a world of money. And I think you can have all the money in the world. They always say this, right? And not be happy. Which to some degree, we're all like, yeah, we need money. But there's a piece of you, I think, that's filled by helping others. And to me, like I said, education is, I believe my blood runs education. So for me, it's just another venture, another way to, like, tangibly, I physically see these kids every day that I'm there, and I see where they start, I see where they end, I see what we're doing. So for me, that's just the part of it that I love. So it's my nonprofit school. We're very small, 85 students. We keep our classrooms at about 10 to 15. We take breaks every 45 minutes. So it's just very unique.
I never understood teacher, like, clearly, teachers, you touched on it, briefly, teachers don't make a whole lot of money. They go through a lot of crap. They're dealing with
Yep.
everybody's kids that are coming with different problems from home, and they're there in the front lines and get very little appreciation for it. So I never understood why anybody would want to do it. Still, I applaud them. I would not be that person to go do that, but I at least understand their mission now and
Right.
what motivates them
Right.
through our literacy program. For sure. Uh, what if any of our guests heard this and they wanted to help out with your nonprofit? How would they get involved?
Yeah. So my nonprofit is Coastal Middle and High School. And so you can, our website is coastalmiddleandhighschool.com. But the easiest way is to get involved. Obviously, if anyone's local, we always love people to come in. But we do a lot where we just want guest speakers. This could be through Zoom, this could be coming in because we don't have buses, we're taking our kids out, but we do want them to hear all the different options of life. I always say college is one track, trades another track, business another track. Like I'm more um, looking at life as a whole, not just my track is to college, because I have a lot of kids. I have three really great kids now. One wants to go to school for be a firefighter. He's graduating. One wants to do HVAC and one wants to do plumbing. And I'm just like on that track with them, pushing them because I think that's wonderful. And I think that there's nothing wrong with that. So anyone that can bring anything to the table of experience or story, that's a great way to do it. And we have a bunch of information on our website as well to help out funding wise. But just as people, I just like them to hear from different people. Even if it's someone who's like, oh, I started this company, I can do a Q&A with kids. That would be wonderful too, because they just want to hear from real people, real experiences, and see what's out there in life, because they're not getting that on the home life side. So we want to provide that for them.
That's awesome. I love that. And when we finish this up, I'll give you some information on
Yeah.
some ways that we could help. But Lisa, I promised you I wouldn't take too much of your time. I'm super blessed. I know that you're just getting back into the swing of things. I've got to follow you on your amazing holiday journey the
Yeah.
last couple of weeks while trying to learn about some questions for you. So I know that you got a lot on your plate. But Lisa, thank you so much
Yeah,
for
of
joining
course.
with us. I'm so grateful to hear your story.
Yes, well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I love sharing my story just to uh, give others hope and also just inspire educators out there, because this is more than just a job, it's a mission, and we're truly changing lives.
And I want to point one thing out to educators there, because when I talk to them, a lot of them are like, I'm not a salesperson. If you're going to own a business, you need to be a salesperson. You sell education to kids every single day.
Yeah,
You
I love
are
this question though, that or that what you just said, because that is what I say on my team all the time. Because everyone says I'm not sales, and I'm like, no, you just talking about it and knowing about it, that's what everyone wants. They don't want the salesperson. No one
right.
wants the actual car salesman, right? We want
Mhm.
someone just talking about it, being knowledgeable about it,
People
coming
buy
from
passion
experience.
way over
Yes,
anything else all the
a
time.
thousand
That's how
percent.
we've made it. So I just want to say that to any teachers hearing this, you are salespeople. You sell education
Yes,
every single day. You sell to your children every single day. We all are sales in some form or fashion. But Lisa, thank you so much. I look forward to talking to you in the future and following your journey.
of course. Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
Thanks.